Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 19 of the Rewatch podcast presented by the Terrible Video Gamers Club. I'm your host, Tyler Schatz, survivor of the Battle at the Wall. Joining me this fine recording session is one Stephen Howard.
I don't have something prepared today.
I'll come back to you. Amanda Howard.
The wildling at the gate.
There we go. Nick Castillo.
Gren and Mag.
Grim and Mag. Stephen, do you have anything this time?
Okay, I have something. I am the gladiator being told to fight to her death by the evil Queen Daenerys.
Okay.
Needs
You
work.
might be a couple episodes ahead.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where the heck you went.
Oh, shoot.
I feel like this needs a
Oh,
do-over.
no.
All right. And
Oh, you're right. I am.
You
How many
ahead.
episodes did you watch?
and last, but certainly not least, Gary Delaney.
Someone like Tywin Lannister who also doesn't like to get interrupted while pooping.
Always has to tie it to the toilet somehow.
That's Gary's toilet humor for you. All right. For this episode, we watched 2 episodes from season 4, The Watchers on the Wall and The Children, which is episode 10. So we're going to start with covering episode 9, The Watchers on the Wall. And it's the battle between the Night's Watch and the Wildlings has come. In my personal opinion, one of the top 3 greatest episodes of Game of Thrones of all time there. Fight me on that if you dare.
I'll disagree.
What?
There was one where someone got beheaded, so fight me on that.
There's a lot of them when people get beheaded.
Oh.
You have to be
More
more
specific.
specific.
And this is like one of the few episodes too where it literally stays on one location the entire time there. Like there's multiple
Love those episodes.
scenes throughout the episode at different parts where you're on top of the wall, you're in Castle Black, you're outside of the wall
those-
watching the wildlings.
Call those vignettes.
Yeah,
Thank
but
you.
you never leave the wall.
But
Yeah, you
leave the
never
wall.
leave the wall.
And we can already
It was
tell
actually
Steven's
grand.
so thrilled.
Yeah,
Just
what
like-
was that reaction? It was a great episode.
Okay. So, I will start this episode by saying
Oh,
this.
no.
Jon Snow and the Men in Black are Men in Black. But
Night's
anyways,
Watch.
yes, the Night's Watch are somewhat interesting. I don't find them nearly as interesting as the rest of the story. So
What?
I don't want to say it loses my attention. It doesn't lose my attention per se. But I start to kind of drift when watching it. So this episode, I know some people who love Jon Snow
Me.
will love this episode. People who are ambivalent about Jon Snow, I feel like might be ambivalent about this episode, and that's how I feel.
Steven, what's ambivalent?
People are dying, the wall's being attacked, and Steven's like, it's just kind of boring, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
okay.
let those
I kind of
men at
enjoy the
wall do what
battle.
they do.
I kind of enjoy the battle. I don't enjoy watching inept people fight and incompetence at
Too.
work. And I don't. That's not Jon Snow. Jon Snow is not inept or incompetent. I'm not saying that about him.
Incompetence.
But there are
talk bad
certain
about my
members
friend
that we
Sam
will talk
Charlie.
about. There are certain members that we will talk about on the Night's Watch who are inept, incompetent, insecure,
But-
a whole bunch of in-words. They are
But
just.
Kind of goes along with what's the Night Watch is, though, at this point in time. They're not the elite class of warriors, really, that they
Why
were
do
at
I
one point
want
in
to
time.
watch that though? I mean, if I have the choice between watching professional soccer and like 5-year-olds play, I'm gonna watch professional soccer.
Ouch. Relegating Gren and Pip's sacrifice to
Oh, okay. No.
Finding-
I will never relegate their sacrifice. They
Oh.
had a great sacrifice. Great sacrifice is
Hell of a
maybe not the
gate.
way I want to put it, but they are great heroes, and I'm not just degrading them. Slint, on the other hand, maybe I'm degrading him a little bit.
Oh, yeah, he was
Porter
with this
the court rule.
pile before that. Nick, I've cut you off probably one too many times. Go for it.
Story of my life, man. Every time I have something worthwhile to say, Tyler just jumps in and shuts
So,
me down.
anyways, as we were talking here,
Oh,
go ahead, Nick.
hurts, but I'm used to it. No, I'm going to disagree with you. I think that this battle sets up, Steven, the pressure the rest of the world who knows about the White Walkers and the ultimate threat. It shows that's not the word I'm looking for. The urgency that the rest of the world is trying to get to. Like, obviously, the White Walkers are not just the wildlings are not just attacking Castle Black because they want to kill all the crows. I mean, the Thens obviously have their own priorities, but I think in general, Mance is doing this because he knows what lies to the north and what he's being pushed south for. So yes, the crows and the Watchers on the Wall are inept. But it kind of shows the desperation of there's what they say 100,000 troops of all the clans who are the wildlings coming south because they'd rather fight the well fortified, well stocked, even if inept warriors to the south, try and scale a 700-foot wall rather than fight the dead in the north. And so, yes, it's not a great battle, but it's telling of the stakes that the people in this world are fighting for. That was my comment. I'll go back to enjoying my Men in Black glasses.
What a weirdo. I actually, my question was back to Steven. Like, you felt it was long, kind of boring. What do you think they could have done less of? Do you think it was less characters? If you just literally just didn't have Jonas Slint in that conversation, you probably could have cut out 5 minutes. He runs and hides like a little bitch. Do you think they could have cut out some of the battle, some of the Ygritte stuff, like some of the Then shit?
I'll be very honest. I don't think this is a problem with Game of Thrones. I think this is the me problem. And I'm very willing to admit that. This just isn't my cup of tea in terms of Jon Snow. When we have that sort of... I have an issue with the wildlings. I voiced that last time with the wildlings and how they rampage and murder and kill. And then are kind of... We want to try to make us sympathize with them. It's kind of like trying to sympathize with the Mountain in a way. Like, I don't want to sympathize with someone who's just going ransacking, killing for the sake of ransacking and killing. And yes, they do have a... Oh, what?
Do you think there's some character development missed? Like, if you had better character development with the King Beyond the Wall or...
I don't think it is. I think it's Jon Snow is too good of a person. And Amanda knows this very well about me. I don't like perfectly good characters. They're boring. They tend to just do one thing. They can kind of telegraph everything that's coming. There's no surprise with them. And in this case, Jon Snow goes on to make a decision afterwards about what become. We'll talk about that. But he makes a decision afterwards that I don't necessarily agree with, and we'll talk about that. What I was going to say, in addition to Nick's comment, you could say literally everything in this show, book series, whatever you want to call it, sets up the White Walker threat. I don't think there is any crucial turning point where this becomes a White Walker threat until the White Walkers... If the White Walkers... later in the movie. It becomes a critical threat later in the movie. Right now, even the people that are fighting, the Night's Watch versus the...
Wildlings.
Thank you, Wildlings. Only the Wildlings know of this threat. The Night's Watch refuse to believe it exists. And in this... not to get political, but this is kind of like a greenhouse effect or like global warming, temperature, climate change or whatever. Yes, boo history, but it's hard to say this is a turning point when only one faction even knows it matters. Like, it's pretty distracting, I'll be very honest. But I don't see it. I don't see it as a turning point, basically. I see it as the beginnings, maybe, of something, but it's not a turning point in and of itself.
So, yeah, I'll kind of echo your point there towards Nick's comment, Stephen, of like, it's it's maybe we obviously had the initial cold opening way back at season 1, episode 1, which was the basic introduction of the White Walkers.
Old opening.
Cold. It was a cold opening that was cold. Yes, I think we discussed this way back when. And then we had like the battle at the Fist of the First Men there with the Night's Watch versus the. Oh yeah. So speaking of that, we have the battle at the Fist of the First Men with the Night's Watch versus the not the Wildlings, the White Walkers. That's the first real interaction there with Jorah Mormont when they ride north. So it's maybe maybe you are kind of right with your examples there of like the Wildlings know the White Walkers are a threat. The Night's Watch doesn't want to believe it is a threat really to them. It might be the key difference there. Plus, too, the Night's Watch was originally started as an order to keep the White Walkers, out of the rest of Westeros. They were there to defend the realm against the realm of men there. But then that slowly changed throughout the years for whatever reason to be fighting the Wildlings. Who were just people who wanted to go north of the wall and live out their own life and be free up there. So eventually that changed the dynamic of everything too here. And now I'm kind of slowly losing my train of thought here. But I would say though too, I don't think this is the big turning point for the world, because everybody south of the wall doesn't have any clue that the White Walkers are a threat. They just know of the Wildlings occasionally when they come south as a raiding party, which, yes, to Stephen's point there too about how we're supposed to sympathize with the Wildlings, even though they're this murderous band of thieves and stuff like that. They're kind of portrayed sometimes as that too. Yes and no, they kind of are, I would say. Nick.
I was going to comment on the thought on Jon Snow. Also, I'll tie in a little bit to the greater Wildling army on the comments that were made too. I think Jon Snow is flawed. Just devil's advocate to your point, Stephen, about how he's perfect. I think he's flawed because he always makes the right choice. Or he seems to make the choice that is like, why would you do that? That's the worst choice in this strategic position. It's a lot like Ned Stark, who's his father. All
right.
So because there's a lot of like comments about like, why in this episode, right? Why doesn't he try and argue harder to Alistair Thorne's comments and like, no, we need to close the tunnel and we need to defend ourselves because we're going to get smoked here. He eventually is just like, all right, fine, I'll just take up my position, and he and Tarly are just watching the wall because that's his job, right? It's not his job to argue with him, like Alistair says later on in the conversation too. Being a leader just means everyone's going to second guess you, but you have to keep going on with what you intend to do. You still kind of have to do your job because that's what your job is. I think, to paraphrase, obviously, nothing. It's like everybody else makes the choice based on strategic knowledge. So he doesn't. He just, this is what I should do, so this is what I'm going to do. And obviously, in the context of the show, it's written in a sense that he usually survives. He is well skilled with the sword, knows how to defend himself. But it's usually something that's like gonna doom him to get screwed over. And then with the Wildling army, yeah, sort of same thing. I don't think that all of them are evil people. Just a comment about their
not all Wildlings.
Not all Wildlings. Sorry, not all Wildlings are murderous and butcherous. The Fens, obviously, that are eating people, and some of the other clans. But they said there's like 100 clans or 50 clans. I just spaced the number. I think 100. They said 100 clans. 100 clans. So there are some, obviously, that, like you said, are just trying to live out their lives north of the wall, and Mance happened to get them all together. So I don't think that they're inherently dangerous or cruel clans, but there are some, obviously, just like any society, that are on the extremes of that.
I was just I guess Nick was talking about Jon Snow, and I feel like he made his point, but I think in the end, he always grew up as a bastard, so he's probably used to being, like, everyone's, like, second-guessing him, not respecting his authority, even though he's just as smart as anyone else.
Right.
Yeah.
He has the knowledge of life, because he's been through some stuff, obviously, we've seen in the show, but he's not a character to speak from authority, right? Yeah. And that scene from last episode, not this episode, they ask him, Jon Snow, are you one of the builders? Are you one of the rangers? No, you're the steward, right? It's like your job is not to give this advice. So he has no authority officially to stand on.
Oh, I definitely agree. Actually, that was a very good point that you made about who Jon Snow's dad was, and he's the perfect who his dad, quote unquote, is, and he's the perfect emulation of who that is, and that makes sense. And that's I don't know. I think that's a good point. You have a good point there. Not much I can say about that.
Devil's advocate, not trying to sway you one way or the other, but
it was a good point. Oh, it's definitely a good point. I will say I completely disagree with you on the wildlings. The first thing the wildling party does when they release a scouting party over the wall is slaughter a farm and then slaughter a village and kill a woman running away. And these aren't combatants that they're trying to kill. These are just civilians. If they want to run, they can run. You don't have to kill the farmers to be able to run further south. And
do 14 apples spoil the bunch of 100,000 folks, right?
Do 14 apples? I mean, yes, they do, in fact, because you have the idea that these are representative of who the wildlings are. And we see that also, we see with the wildlings themselves, how they are a little bit chaotically organized, if organized can even be attached as a word to them. And they aren't. It's like when we glorify the Vikings, and I am very much you'll find that I am very much a non-Viking fan. Yes, I'm a Packers fan, but I mean the historical Vikings. We glorify the Vikings, but what the Vikings did was they raided, they pillaged, they raped, they murdered, and they didn't contribute per se in they did contribute in a constructive way, but that doesn't make them good people. Like the Crusaders that went off to the Holy Kingdom, or whatever they thought was the Holy Kingdom, they weren't good people. They raped, killed, murdered, and just if we try to justify what they did, you lose sight of who they are and what they were.
Steven, I know you and I have debated this a lot before. It's like you've told me before that if a character is so good and so perfect and always makes the right choice, you find them utterly boring. So I do find it amusing that you're listing all the flaws of these characters. Like, no, they're all bad people. Well, then you're never going to be happy, aren't you? If a character is perfect and you find them boring, but the second
I reserve the right never to be happy. Thank you.
And then my other point, I would just say, talking about what Gary mentioned about Jon Snow, I thought that was also a good point to. As a bastard, I think even in the books he's saying he holds his honor as the only thing that makes him him, since he doesn't have a name, since he is considered dishonorable because of his birth by the rest of the Seven Kingdoms. So I think that might also be why he tries to make those choices every time. Gary?
I was just gonna re-ask, obviously Steven, who hates the episode and hates fun, thought that there was some things that could have been narrowed down. Did anyone else sort of think that some things could be narrowed down? Specifically, my thoughts is, if Janice Slint was never in the whole show, would it ever matter?
Yes, it would. Go, Tyler. I'll go after you.
Okay, so I wanted to kind of just briefly go back to the wildling raiding party there south of the wall. I believe their mission was to basically try and draw the Night's Watch out of the castle at least somewhat, to thin their numbers a little bit more, making it more easily to attack Castle Black. Yes, murdering a bunch of defenseless farm people, obviously you're not a good person. There's not really much of a redemption back from that there. But I mean, if it kind of goes back to the us versus them mentality, I'm sure they probably have, of these people won't treat us with respect. They'll warn the people that come bring their knights and stuff like that out to take us out. We kind of have to stop the essential warning party there, basically, from letting anyone know that we're here. But then back to Gary's part there, though, too. Janos Slint serves kind of a larger part in future episodes, not trying to spoil anything there. He serves kind of a larger part. Yes, his entire point in this episode was kind of just to be a worthless person out there. But overall, I don't think there was like too much to really kind of cut out of it. I mean, there was the slower parts kind of at the beginning and at the and I think it was at the end maybe with Maester Aemon. That was really nice. It was like a nice change of pace to the episode there, or like when Sam would talk to Gilly and stuff. It's just kind of more of that characterizing of these people here at the show and just kind of showing, okay, a battle is coming. This is what these people are kind of doing to get ready. Like Sam was in the library reading books and stuff like that, and then he sent Gilly away basically to the safest spot in the castle. And Sam also had that conversation with Maester Aemon there too, which anytime we get Maester Aemon in an episode, it's just high quality right there. He's such a great actor and character.
Agreed.
Minimalist actor. Like he doesn't say a lot, but it's sort of what he does say carries a little more weight.
Exactly. Nick.
Yeah, I was going to say actually the same thing, just to drive it home, Tyler, about how the characters, what I really like about these episodes in Game of Thrones is how the characters each have their own perspectives and priorities, right? Like some are up on the wall preparing fortifications, getting ready for the offensive, whereas, yeah, Sam is down trying to protect what's most important to him, making sure Gilly's safe, right? They even have a moment where they get a kiss, super sweet. But just in general, yeah, I totally disagree. I think that having characters like Janos Slynt in there are such a diametrically opposite character to who Jon Snow is, that it shows how heroic Jon is compared to how cowardly Janos Slynt is. Like as soon as everything, like he's left in charge, it's not even like he tries to give some commandments. He just instantly realizes we're screwed. None of us are well trained. You know, we're all going to get owned. There's so many people out there. And the first chance he gets to retreat back into the castle, he does. So yeah, it's. I think that having characters like that in highlight the best or better attributes of the other characters, but also gives that antagonist pull for our protagonist to really make the story more interesting. If everybody was, again, not picking on Steven's comment, but if everybody was super well trained, super knowledgeable, and there were no antagonists like Janos Slynt or Alistair Thorne, everyone would be like, we need to go range north of the wall and get rid of their troops. Sure, let's do that. Let's close off the tunnel. Sure, I'm in agreement. That's a good call. And the episode would be 5 minutes. Then it would just show all of the wildlings stuck outside the wall doing nothing, and the episode would be boring.
Just to briefly cut in there too, I liked your comparison between Slynt and Jon Snow, but it's even too like he's even somewhat diametric opposite to Alistair Thorne as well too, where Thorne hates Snow, obviously, but he comes to respect the fact that, like, yep, Jon Snow was right and everything like that, and puts up his life to fight for the wall, whereas Slynt just hides as quickly as he can.
Mm-hmm.
Steven, I've cut in front of you now enough times.
It was rude, and I will not forgive it. But anyways.
All he does.
Yeah, but Steven, that would make a boring character if he let you. So.
Shots fired.
I agree that Janos Slynt serves a purpose. I hate his purpose, but he serves a purpose, and I just don't enjoy watching him. It 100% understand why he's there. Doesn't mean I have to enjoy it.
Maybe
but
that's the point. You're not supposed to enjoy him as a character.
Oh yeah, definitely. I 100% agree with that. There are a lot of characters like the hero of the revolution that you're not supposed to enjoy, Gary. Yeah, boy, Joffrey. But anyways,
I was make a joke about Janos Slynt for king. You guys were definitely like backing that.
Oh,
I just think he could just not be involved. I think his role is too big for how insignificant. You could have any character that would I guess, yeah. Well, I just don't think he was needed as much or as liberally as he's used.
Yeah, I mean, sure. If you wanted to completely write him out of the episode, it could have just been a quick throwaway line of like Slynt is going to be in the freezer area defending Maester Aemon as the last line of defense or something like that.
Ran away. He could have just ran away right at the beginning. He
can't run away though because he serves a larger purpose in the story that's coming.
Okay. I'll just not believe you. But
what I was also real quick, what I was also going to say is I don't even if the wildlings point going back there was to raid and get the troops out from the fort when they pass the wall. That still doesn't mean that they're someone to cheer for anymore and someone to kind of lionize. And that's what I think we end up doing is lionizing the wildlings in terms of, oh, their ethic, their fight, their etc. etc. Uh, lionize.
You wanted me to lionize.
2 syllables.
Are you like animorphs or?
If only, that would be awesome. No, it's to put up on a pedestal, to make heroic, to be
public attention and approval, and treat someone as a celebrity.
Yes, and that's kind of what ends up happening. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe they face the wall and win. Who knows? But anyways, it's just a 180 that is given to them, and I don't think that they deserve it. And that's you can tell me that you sent terrorists back behind the lines of a civilian community to kill them and get their troops off the front line. You're not going to make me say that's a good thing.
I don't know. You don't think that without them, like if all of your forces were on the top of the wall raining down hell, like it would be more difficult than sort of splitting them between. And I don't know how much the wildlings even know about the wall, but obviously there's a giant elevator that like separates 2 groups of fighting. So I think it served a purpose to try to attack the lower fort, but whatever. Nick?
I think that a war of attrition would be something where if everybody got up on the wall, yeah, they'd be able to rain down arrows on everyone, but then you leave all the food and stocked provisions and things in the castle completely unguarded. And I think that the wildlings, if they were able to get in unabated into the castle, that would be a terrible idea. Yeah, they'd be able to shoot people, but there's all the buildings down below and interior of the castle walls that the wildlings could just hide in and eat all the food and wait until the crows on top just starved. So I don't think it's a terribly tactical idea. But that's not necessarily here or there. Just something interesting I thought of while we were talking about it. My last comment on the wildlings, and then we can get off of this ice sword being melted discussion that's taken the majority of the recording here. My last comment on the wildlings is it's also kind of a who shot who first, right? What came first, the chicken or the egg? Yes, we see wildlings murder the random farm families, but also the rangers ride north to go kill the wildlings that they find, right? So how many random wildling villages do we not see that the rangers have killed over the last 600 years? So there's some give and take there too, where it's, I would act butcherously malevolent to the people who came in and murdered my family if we're just trying to live north of the wall too. So, potato.
There's really no good characters in this world. Everybody's kind of gray, unless you're Jon Snow.
Exactly.
He's
Unless you're Jon Snow.
Yeah.
If you've come looking for justice, you've come to the wrong place.
Or Pod.
True.
That's what Pod and Jon Snow should get together, form a band.
Your boy Joffrey.
Yeah, no, Joffrey's not invited to this band.
Only to weddings.
So I'm gonna kind of throw it out to you guys. Like, where do we kind of want to start with this episode? Because this episode is just the entire fight. There, pretty much. There's like a lot of great points throughout it. Like I remember this one tracking shot was basically, I think, from the elevator over to where it was like hitting all these different people of like Alistair Thorne fighting, Ygritte shooting her bow, and then Tormund fighting the Night's Watch on the wall there to like Sam and Pip basically fleeing from where they were shooting arrows. A lot of great shots.
Shot.
Yes. And then like Alistair Thorne actually gave a halfway decent speech trying to inspire the people on the ground to defend the castle.
Yeah,
he was kicking ass too.
I mean,
he even got involved in the fight against Tormund, wasn't? Or was it the big guy?
Nope, Tormund. He fought against Tormund there too. But still, fuck Alistair Thorne.
Yes. Well, I think that goes to show that there are great fighters and great people of great ability out there who are still assholes.
Right, both sides of the spectrum.
Um,
I can talk a little bit if you're looking for what topic to start with.
sure, yeah, let's go for it.
It's all about me. Actually, I just got to get my points in before you cut me off, Tyler.
Well, anyways, before
I knew you were going to do it. As soon as I said it, I knew you were going to do it. Actually, I'm going to start off with the lead-in about the Gilly and Sam stuff that I was talking about, and just completely 180 and not even talk about the fighting. It's really interesting to see Sam, like, he cares about Gilly, and the first way he tried to protect her is by putting her in a safe place away from him. And clearly that was not the best decision. So this episode is all about him staying with her and trying to protect her by keeping her close. And Gilly even really holds on to that too by trying to get him to stay with her down in the room. He said several times, I can't do that. I have to go defend the wall as well. And again, it highlights what his priorities are, what he thinks he's able to do. And he is able to help. Like, he's one of the people in the front shooting at the raiding party that comes in the front door. Then until Pip goes down, rest in peace, Pip, he's like actually helping out Pip and giving words of encouragement. The thing I had a question on, I'll preface with a little bit of the dialogue, and then I'll throw it to you all. He has this really great exchange that I wrote down at the beginning of the battle where Pip is saying, how are you not scared? And Sam's talking about how when I killed a wildling, I didn't have any wherewithal or any of my wits. And he talks about, if you'd have asked me who I was, I wouldn't have known. I would have been nothing. Then Pip has a line, something to the effect of, well, you seem, aren't you scared now? Or do you feel more about it now? And Sam's comment is, I'm not nothing anymore. And so he has enough wherewithal that he is worried or he is concerned, but he's kind of gotten over that to the point where now he says, I'm not nothing. I have enough smarts to know who I am. Me, I kind of took that as he is not as scared as maybe he may have been several episodes ago. How do you guys take that? What do you guys see from Sam in this episode?
I think it's that he's saying he's more fucking scared. Like, in the moment, he couldn't be scared because he was just, like, in the moment, but now he is somebody who has something to fight for, and that now he's afraid of losing what he's got. I think that means he's more fucking scared.
I was going to say, I think he's scared as well. I'm not sure if he's more scared per se, but I think he's saying that I agree with Gary. He has something to fight through the fear for. Before, he was scared, and that's all he was. And so he would just either hide and cower or run away. Not this time. He has something to fight for. Regardless of whether he's more scared or the same amount of scared, he's going to push through it.
I think just as a character, I think Sam just lives in fear. Like, that's what's his normal. Like, he was the hated first son of a great lord. Like, he is not designed to be in the Night's Watch. Like, he's just, like, the most comfortable place for him is in the library. Like, so anything outside of that in the real world scares him. Like, he'd rather read about it in a book than actually experience it in real life. So, yeah. Amanda?
He even, right before the battle, like, he cursed out Pip and told him to open the door, open the gate. Like, he took charge for a second there and told him, like, what to do, which was also nice to see coming from Sam. He had the confidence to do that, and he had, like, the courage to carry it through and get tough about it, like, do this. And even during the battle at one point, when Pip was like, I shot one. He was like, oh, is it over? No. No. He kept a level head on his shoulders and was going. I was proud of him.
Points all. Could do another one, but not if anyone else has anything else.
Well, I'll jump in then here, Nick. Speaking of Sam.
So, anybody else have anything else? Anyone have anything else?
Just keep ignoring that guy.
What a dick.
Sam and John's conversation on top of the wall there, of basically like two friends kind of conversing to like just have a friendly conversation before the incoming battle, thinking they're both going to die tonight, so let's just talk about it. So Sam's first question to John was like, "Could you describe her?" And John, what did the answer John give back? He was like, "She had red hair," and he's like, How tall was she, you idiot? I don't want you to talk about her like that. Tell me about her. Which that was just kind of a great moment from Sam there, and then also to Sam coming up with the loophole to the Night's Watch vows of you can be with somebody, but as long as you hold no lands, father no children there, take no wives, whatever, you're kind of fine. Which I thought was just a great way. Again, Sam using his brains to kind of see, is there a way kind of around the situation that I'm in? Gary.
See, I feel like Sam overly romanticizes the idea, and so he's probably read about it in a book more than had that adventure in real life. So he was assuming that John, being a worldly person, would have a very poetic explanation of it. But really, he's still, like, deep down, he's still the bastard son of a great lord. So he doesn't really feel comfortable talking about that. Like he feels it's a smudge on his honor in every way. So he just doesn't want to talk about it. So anyway, Nick.
I concede, Gary. Yeah, the smudge on his honor, he probably doesn't want to talk about it. But again, John doesn't know. He doesn't know how to express those feelings. It's nothing he's ever had. He doesn't really know how to explain it. And Tartally, on the other side, Sam has read books and knows, how to express those things, but he's never experienced that. So yeah, in his mind, I feel like he probably would really trump it up and have a lot of romanticized thoughts about, oh, it's going to be, perfect, and the stars are going to align, and, love at first sight, and, was it like magical? Did she glow almost, because he doesn't know. He's never experienced that. So all he can go off of is how probably the butterflies in his stomach get when he sees Sam. And so he's trying to coax that out of John, but
Sam?
yeah, John does.
He sees Gilly.
No, Sam's.
He's
Oh,
Gilly.
yeah, sorry.
I just
Yeah,
didn't
sorry.
know if you were trying to. I hinted
Just
something
throwing
else,
names.
Nick.
Throwing names out. They have a definite bromance, the two of them. Come on. Well, yeah. Anyways, it's one desperately wanting to know about the thing he doesn't know about, and the other one not being able to explain the thing he knows intimately.
And then the last quick call out here too is Sam, the Slayer of White Walkers, also becomes the killer of a Then in this episode as well, which was pretty great. It's the part, Gary, you look kind of confused there. It's the part there where Sam is like, I think Pip has just died, and he's, I think it's like as he's going to free Ghost, I think, or something like that. But Sam's running through the courtyard with the crossbow. He's trying to load it, and this Then comes charging at him. He finally gets it loaded and shoots the guy right in the head, basically.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Well, that's good.
Aim. Beautiful aim. Would have been disappointed if he missed at that stage, but like that short of a distance. But still, didn't he shoot him in the face?
Yep, right in
I
the
think so.
forehead.
In tu
Great.
cara.
I think one
Oh,
better
scoped.
would have been if he missed the guy, but like hit like a lantern above him, and the lantern killed him and set him on fire. Like,
Okay,
just absolutely just turn it into a comedy, which would have
Oh.
terribly broken. the
Harry's
tone.
going to join the creative writing team for Game of Thrones next.
Just
Game of
like
You'll
Thrones
see an
as a
episode
comedy.
come out labeled The Hero of
level,
Revolution.
like, just,
Game of Thrones rewritten as a comedy is something now I kind of want to try to watch.
yes, definitely.
Like
Any-
Always Sunny in the Westeros.
Anyone have anything else to kind of talk about here too? I do have a couple more points, but I'm gonna just keep throwing it back to you guys.
My only point from this episode was the Ygritte's death, and sort of there's sort of this weird, like, a couple seconds of contemplation where like she's got the drop on John, but
Clearly.
she doesn't. Is it that she is contemplating, or is that you think she just wants John to know that like he's gonna die and it's gonna be mine? It shall be mine. Also, at the end of the scene, on a rewatch, you realize that little boy kills Ygritte. But on a rewatch, you realize that's much more poetic because Ygritte killed his parents.
I had
So-
that comment when we did that. Yep. When we talked about that episode.
Like that's more. Yeah, I might have spoiled that. Whatever. Anyway, but yeah, Nick, what are your thoughts on that interaction?
The moment where Ygritte gets the jump on John and they just have this stare off and she's thinking about it and he just like, lets his guard down. He's like, if you're going to do it, do it.
He
I don't
smiles
think
too.
he smiles. Yeah. I don't think that she wants him to know she got the jump on him. She is legit in love with him and just if she knows that she hates him for leaving her, and she's been jilted before, she said, from other guys who have been jerks to her. So she knows she could totally get back and how great that would feel at him. But since she cares so much about him, the hesitation is because she knows that she probably doesn't want to go on living without him or couldn't stand it if she was the one who killed him and took him away from her. I think that it's internal. It's not a, haha, I got the jump on you kind of thing. It's totally, she just can't do it in the moment. It's not to say that she wouldn't if maybe that moment got to be a little longer, like you said, since she died. Because she never lowers her bow. It's never like she makes a choice. She's just stuck contemplating in her mind about what those choices mean and the ramifications. So I don't know what she's thinking, obviously, because they never talk. But there's a lot of context in that situation.
Maybe she had built up that moment for herself, like for weeks, of like, when I get back, I'm gonna I feel so fucking mad at this guy. Like I'm gonna fucking shoot him in the face. And then she
has
gets
several
there
comments.
and she's like, "Damn it, you're still cute."
she has several.
Your award-winning smile got me. Damn it.
She has several comments to the other people too about how like she's gonna kill him. No, I'm gonna kill him. I'm gonna shoot him first. Like all this stuff. She plans to kill him, but when she's given that opportunity, she hesitates. All right, Steven?
Well, and I think, Gary put it a little bit more humorously than I would have, but I think that's entirely correct. That she built it up in her mind, and she's like, "Yeah, everyone kind of does. Yeah, fuck that dude. Fuck that. I hate him. I'm gonna kill him. Blah blah blah." And it's like someone that just betrayed you, that's really close to you. Then you finally meet them face to face, and that's a different thing than meeting them in your mind. And you're like, "Damn it! Award-winning smile."
She caught the feels.
I do also want to say I think it is also poetic that the kid ends up killing her, not for the reason that he killed her. She killed his parents for a different reason that we will learn later.
Boy, also on that note, one last comment. He kind of like, John looks over to see who kills her, and Ollie like makes a nod to John, like he's like, "There, I saved you," or "You're
next."
welcome." It's a "you're welcome" kind of a look, right? It's not just like Ollie was terrified or Ollie was, "Man, I hope I can do this." He thinks I just saved Jon Snow's life, for what it's worth. And so there is a moment there too where Ollie kind of feels like, "Ha, I've been vindicated." Maybe a little bit of you owe me now, John.
Oh,
maybe something there, but I don't know.
I think that's his story of greatness. Like, obviously, he plans on being at the wall until the day he dies. And when he's old and in his like 30s or 40s, but unless he's gonna say, "I was at the Battle of the Wall. I saved the great Jon Snow." And he's gonna tell this poetic story, and he's like, "I did that." Because up to that point, like, he was scared to even run the elevator wheel, and so I think that was him, like, getting up the courage that even though he's the little guy, he's still gonna fuck some fuckers up.
He did get a slight
It's a-
push by Sam though there too.
Yeah.
Sam was like, "Ollie, send me to the top. Go grab a weapon and fight."
Back to
And take
Ygritte a little
charge.
bit. I did think it was interesting when Ygritte was telling other people, she's like, don't, and no one else kill him. And I think she did say that she was going to kill him or whatever, but she also mentioned, like, if any of you kill him, like, I'll do something worse to you. Not necessarily if any of you kill him before me. She just said if anyone else kills him, anybody kills him.
How would you
That's
kill
what
him
they-
before she
No,
killed
but,
him? Is
like-
she gonna secondary kill him?
But it can go either way. Like that if you just say like if anyone kills him, you would say that to somebody if you wanted to kill him. You would also say it to somebody if you absolutely love that person and you don't want him to die. If any of you kill him,
You're telling.
and she does tell him at the very end, we should have stayed in that cave. Feels.
Yeah,
it's you know nothing.
So
Does
sad.
he butter that again, or is that that it was only in the cave?
I think
I
she
think
did say. She think.
I think she
I
says
think
it again.
so, yeah.
I think she did.
Said it one last time to him. Yeah.
All right.
Oh, nothing, Jon Snow.
Anyone have anything else for this episode here? Because really, like I keep saying, it's just the fight basically. That's all this episode is, and then the ending part.
How does it end again?
It ends with John basically deciding to go out on his suicide mission to go find Mance Rayder and kill him to
That's right.
hopefully scatter the wildlings.
I guess the last like cool thing in that episode was that sickle, that like
Oh, the big
giant.
scythe.
Yeah, that was neat. Yeah.
Like
Seriously
I feel
cool.
like that on the initial, I knew it was coming on the rewatch, but on the initial watch, like that was the one thing that was like you didn't see coming, and when it came, you're like, this is fucking awesome. Like there's little guys with their ice picks still, their hands are still hanging onto the ice picks. Like it was awesome because you didn't see it coming. You knew they had arrows, you knew they could throw pitch, but you just didn't know about that. And they're like, reload it, and I'm like, holy crap, we're gonna get multiples of these things, and then the episode ends.
I think it's taking it to a different thing, like Grog in Lord of the Rings, the giant wolf head battering ram, which is just, you're not really expecting it, and then it shows up and you're like, more of this. This is awesome.
I have one comment as well. If you're talking about the actual battlements and defenses of both sides, the giants on mammoths is my jam. Like there's a part where one of the wildlings pulls out a bow and shoots up at the wall, and you see he gets like halfway up the wall, and the giant hops down and pulls his bow and fires this gigantic spear arrow up into the air, and you just see it like shatter into some unexpected crow
Canopy.
and it like blows him out the top of the canopy, and he flies off the back of the wall and lands on the ground and like spears him into the ground, and his arms flail out. Like, damn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All of that.
Yeah,
Giants
just the
on
one back.
mammoths.
What the fuck are the people down there saying? Is like, what the fuck is happening up there? Holy shit! Someone just got scared.
Is that a giant riding a mammoth?
Well, even like a guy
D&D
walks.
nerd.
A guy like walks past him, sees that happen, goes, and you see him make the decision of, I've got bigger things to worry about.
Right. Oh, man.
Giants
Yeah, the
on
inner-
Mammoth sounds like a band name or like an album cover right there. I love it.
It does. That's our new.
Inner
Hey, that's going to be
D&D nerd
Pod
and-
and Jon Snow's band name is Giants on Mammoths.
Giants on mammoths.
All right. Well, unless anyone has anything else, I think we've pretty much covered this episode here with our good conversation right at the beginning and the points we've discussed here afterwards. We can probably move on to episode 10, titled The Children. Jon makes an important decision. Daenerys experiences new consequences. Brienne and Podrick have an unexpected encounter. Bran achieves a goal while Tyrion makes an important discovery. So let's see here. Nick, we'll throw it over to you to start us off first for this episode. What do you got?
All of these titles for these episodes are so well named, but usually they have like a double meaning behind them. Like, I'll pepper a little bit of a couple different topics here, and we can dive into one or two if it sparks somebody's thought. But the children, obviously, you have the Lannister children, because there's important information that they divulge to Tywin. The children refers to the children of the forest, because we find out what happens when Bran finally gets to his destination. And there's all this information in this episode, too, about just the children in general. Like, what happens when all of these family ties kind of just explode when the consequences of all these things that have been building all season come to fruition. Watching this episode, I had forgotten that this was the the season finale. After this,
Yep.
it jumps into season 5. This is all season 4, and so I was really, because just to make sure I knew like where my next episodes to watch next time were. I started the next episode, and yeah, it jumps into 5-1. I was like, holy crap! Like, I mean, in the context of when this came out, season just sort of ends with all of this stuff that just happened in this episode, and you're like, oh my gosh, what's going on with Bran, at the tree? Who's this he's talking to? What's going on with Tywin? Oh my gosh, Tyrion, what? And it's like all this stuff that has been building with the trial and Oberyn and Tywin and what he really wants to have happen, and even kind of what Jaime and Cersei are doing, right? I mean, we've had 4 seasons of them seemingly so sneaking about doing their romantic trysts, where he just comes out and says, everything about me and Jaime is true to her father. Like, Tywin has so much power, spoken and unspoken, in this episode. He's, the head of the trial. He's the head of the family. He's the head of the household. He's, for all intents and purposes, the power behind the crown for young Tommen. She's just like right in his face. You have no power. Your whole legacy is a lie. And it's like, that is gutsy. And then she comes and kind of confesses to Jaime and has this, like, gives into her desire for him and his desire for him that we have spoken about in earlier episodes. We're kind of like, how dare you not, give it to him after all he went through? And so it's this really powerful ending to the season, especially like we just said, after this gigantic battle that happened, that still answers and solves some concerns, but still throws a lot into the air. So the Children is an awesome name, in my opinion, for this episode. And like I said, there's a lot of good stuff to unpack here.
I will touch on too, Nick. There's 2 more parts with tying into the name The Children for this episode. There's one, Dany dealing with her 2 dragons, which are her children there.
Absolutely.
And also, she's dealing with them as a result of one of her dragons burning a child of one of her subjects there, basically, which is, again, just another, as the kind of synopsis covers, it's another consequence Daenerys one of the 2 consequences she has to deal with kind of in this new world she's trying to rule over there. So I don't know, is there anywhere you want us to start, Nick, with this? Or maybe I'll throw it up to Gary here.
I'll throw it to Gary and Steven first, get their points, and then we can dive into.
Do you guys actually think Tywin knew? Like, it as the scene plays out, it makes it seem like he's completely fucking oblivious. And I guess my question is, like, did he just resign himself years ago to just ignore it as a possibility? Like, he saw it and he'd heard the rumors, but he had to convince himself they couldn't be true so much that he just has like Alzheimer's as to it even being a possibility. Like, he's just like completely on a different point. I don't know. You guys are playing finger puppets with one another. Who would like to answer the question first? Let's go to Amanda.
Winning. I would say that, yeah, I'm pretty sure he just convinced himself. He has such this vision of legacy. He can see where he wants himself to stand in the history books, perhaps not the details, but he knows that he wants to be at a certain stage of grandeur, and he has convinced himself. And we can all easily tell ourselves lies or decide that, there's that little thing sitting there, but you know what? You can just always bury it there and never look at it. Mm-hmm. And the same way that he can sit there and tell himself that, like, Tyrion is a horrible little monster, like, the way that he can convince himself that is the exact same, I think. Who should we go to? Tyler.
Yeah, you've basically just covered all the points that I think I was going to make there, of just like, he willingly tried to basically put this out of his mind. And I'm sure, especially too, after Cersei got married to Robert and had children there, he probably willingly ignored the fact that these children were definitely not Robert's there, because I don't know if we want to touch on the show that's kind of currently airing right now, but basically, like, sometimes it's not about the bloodline, it's about the name itself moving forward. Steven.
I guess adding on to Tyler's point, you're just saying like the king currently is a purebred Lannister, but that wasn't as important as it like his family title or his family history, where even though it's a pure Lannister on the throne, he's still ruling under the name Baratheon. So the honor of House Lannister only happens if Jaime takes back over Casterly Rock. So anyway, Nick?
There's a comment that Tywin has to Cersei in an earlier episode where when he proposes this marriage to Loras Tyrell of Highgarden, he says, these disgusting rumors about you and Jaime will stop. He never once says, you will stop making out with your brother. He says, these rumors about you and your brother will stop. He doesn't even acknowledge that it's something that's happening. He just wants the rumors to stop, or the discussion of it, or whatever's causing the rumors to stop. I don't think that he's, like everyone has mentioned, I don't think it's something that he is aware of is true, or that he acknowledges even. It's just, it's in that dark part of his brain where either he's just ignored it, or he's willed himself to know it's falsely. But to him, it's a lie. It's not true. It can't be true. That's not how I envision our family.
I think that honestly, this shows Tywin's one major weakness, and that is his family and his vision of who his family is. And I think this is shown by Cersei, obviously, and the reaction there, but also later on in the episode with Tyrion and his attempt to negotiate with Tyrion, which is. He comes from these perspectives of, I know exactly who my child is, and I know more about who they are than they know about themselves. And that is his downfall, because he doesn't. He has, for better or worse, 3 exceptional children. Very exceptional. And to think that he can just will them like he did Joffrey, who was a dunce, it's not something that'll work, and it ultimately leads to the end of this show, or the end of this episode.
Mm-hmm.
I think Nick quickly mentioned the marriage to Loras Tyrell, and I think in Tywin's mind, like I think he even says like that she's still young enough to bear children. So in his mind, he wants Cersei to remarry, and then he wants a Lannister grandbaby to be the Lord of Highgarden after the Queen of Thorns, whatever the dad's name is. Mace Tyrell. So, like, that was his plan, is that he needs another marriage and another grandbaby to take over Highgarden. Because then there's Jaime, then there's Highgarden, and then there's the King's Landing. And so he's got Lannisters everywhere in seats of power. Sorry, Nick, you're up.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. I was just going to comment. We made the tie-in, which could be the next topic we talk about here too, but how that leads into, Steven said, the end of this episode with Tywin, and just talking about what he expects Tyrion to do and what he's telling him to do. And he just kind of thinks like, oh yeah, if I tell him, put down the crossbow, we'll go figure this out. I just killed the woman of my love of my life. Don't worry about it. She's a whore. Like, he doesn't even contemplate that's a seriously touchy subject. I mean, he saw Tyrion blow up at the trial, but I don't even think he put 2 and 2 together to give concern about his son's feelings, that he only blew up after this woman we coerced to say these horrible things about him clearly got to him. His own children, all of 3 of Tywin's kids, just doesn't take their considerations or their feelings, their emotions, who they are as people and what their priorities are into consideration. It's just, this is what we're going to go do. And I was going to tie a little bit too with just that context of how he talks to Tyrion, how Tywin talks to Tyrion, in the context of, I know that we've referenced Batman in other conversations on this podcast too, but in The Dark Knight, the Joker says, in their last moments, people show you who they truly are. Once Tywin gets shot, he says, "You're no son of mine," and instantly curses Tyrion. That's the true Tywin. Not the, "Don't worry, we'll go talk this out. Did you actually think I was going to let them execute you? Don't be stupid." Like, that's the false, "We'll work this out. We'll smooth this over." Once he's shot, "You're no son of mine" is the first thing he says in that context. He doesn't say, "Put down the crossbow. Don't shoot me again." It's "You're not a son of mine." When that is the only thing he has ever tried to say to Tyrion to calm him down and help him out. Why'd you save me? What have you ever done for me? And we talked about how he had that one context where he had that conversation. Said, "I saved you on the day you were born. Did something for you. Like, everyone told me to cast you into the sea, and I saved you and gave you my sigil because you're my son." That's him winning the argument. That's not Tywin saying he loves his son. And so in that context too, where he says, "You're no son of mine," after he gets shot, that's the real Tywin. And to me, that's the part that really hurts the most, because Tyrion knew it, but to hear him actually say it and know it's the truth, that's hard. Tyler.
So your thought there, Nick, kind of completely threw out my question here I'm about to ask, because I do agree that Tywin's true self came out when he was shot there. But the question is, like, still, I would like to ask the group here of, like, do you think at any point in time, had things maybe gone differently in the trial or something like that, would Tywin have found a way to not pardon Tyrion, but basically not sentence Tyrion to death? Like, I don't know exactly what to do, but basically to keep Tyrion in his back pocket of, he's a Lannister card I can still kind of play to further the family there if things really don't work out with Jaime here. Steven.
It's a very good question, because on an intellectual level and knowing who he is, you'd say yes, but you also think that maybe what Tywin is trying to do is make everything a little bit more simple, remove pieces from the chessboard that might be complicated so that you have an easier chessboard to play with. And if you believe yourself to be the chess master, then if you remove all complications, everything becomes easier. And so I'll be on. It's a hard question, and I'm not solid one way or the other. I tend to think, though, he would have let Tyrion die.
Nick?
I was gonna say, I don't think Tywin strikes me as somebody to waste resources. I think that the quickness he agreed with Jaime in the previous episode to say, "Done, I'll send him to the wall, and you will go renounce your claim and father children and carry on our line." I think that was the plan all along. I think that I don't know how he would have tried to work that out, because clearly Cersei wants him dead. Wants Tyrion dead. But I think that he would have at least, like Steven said, gotten fewer pieces off the board in King's Landing, at the very least, and sent Tyrion to the wall. So I don't think that he would have gone out of his way to save him, but at least prior to Tyrion's outburst, like you said, if the trial had gone differently, I think that he would have at least tried to keep him as a resource and have a contact at the wall he can use somehow.
I think Nick was right on if they went to trial, like they finished the talkie trial. I think once it went to the trial by combat, if Tyrion won the trial by combat, I feel like they would have wrote songs about it. It would have been this great, because a song of that more ridiculousness of like the Viper killing the Mountain and defending the lessest of all Lannisters, like, would increase his badassness, and maybe they just make a mutual agreement to send him to Dorne so his sister doesn't kill him. So just move Tyrion somewhere else on the chessboard, because he does have still value. He just doesn't have value in King's Landing anymore. Tyler, your thoughts? I mean, do you think he'd survive if he won the trial by combat? Do you think he'd survive?
if he won the trial by combat, I think Tyrion would definitely have to get out of the capital and away from King's Landing for sure, because his life would not be safe. Even going to Dorne, his life still not may be safe because his sister's still going to try and kill him, basically, or send assassins after him to kill him there. So I mean,
But he also could have a holdfast because now the mountain's holdfast is now unlorded.
they're not going to give Tyrion the house of Clegane. Nick,
This is probably venturing down into a quick rabbit hole, but now I'm venturing into the world of Game of Thrones. What if? What do you think would have happened if Oberyn did win that trial by combat? You think he would have gone after Tywin?
Oh,
Yeah, I think so.
Yep.
I think that guy was single-minded. I don't think that it necessarily would have taken as public a face.
Not like in that moment, yeah. But I mean, if he killed Clegane and Clegane has this, divulges at the very end. Yes, I did kill Ilya Martell or whatever, and he knows now. But if he wins that trial by combat, does he find a way to go after Tywin?
Yeah, no, definitely. That's what I'm just saying is I don't think it'll be as public as like a trial by combat, like how he took out Clegane. But I don't think he's against using any sort of underhanded means to get what he wants. Poison? I don't think that's away from him. He poisons his blade in the fight. Why wouldn't he be willing to poison a cup of juice?
I feel like if he was going to get a seat in the small council, Tywin might get a paper cut and might die from a paper cut.
1,000 paper cuts.
Well,
paper cut. Weird.
Like,
this piece of paper is like stuck in his hole in his chest.
He can make poison look reasonable if he's on the inside. And that was Tywin's way of negotiating not being killed, is I'll give you a position of power because that's how little I'm worried that you're actually going to turn on me.
Well, he's very worried. I think he's going to turn on him. Doesn't he say, like in Littlefinger's brothel when he first is introduced to Oberyn, he says, aren't you worried that I may attack you here? And Oberyn says something like, if I attack you, my head will be, on a pike by tomorrow first thing, or by the end of the day or something like that even. Oberyn is smart, I think, up until the point where he feels like he's won in the battle for Tyrion's justice. And it's just, that was a really interesting thought that, we have this whole, really it starts back at the beginning of season 1 when Oberyn is introduced in the capital as how he hates Tywin, and the only one who could have given this order for the mountain to kill his sister when she was the last, one married to Rhaegar Targaryen, it would have had to come from Tywin. And it's this whole arc for Oberyn's character, and the second he dies, there's no real resolution. We jump right into this Watchers on the Wall episode right after it, and then we jump right into this next episode. And so there's, so far, unless there's more that comes up in season 5, I don't recall. But, we don't really hear more about it. So it's interesting the way you phrase that, Gary. It made me wonder what happens to that storyline. How does that play out differently than if the Viper survives unhindered? All right, sorry, side tangent over.
All right, Steven, what do you got?
2 big things for me in this. Well, I guess technically 3. 2 main character things for me in this. The first one I'm going to start with is the awesome battle between Brienne and the Hound. Absolute. Okay, so, and I have 2 thoughts on this. First thought, cut to hell. Absolutely. You're cutting to one shot, cutting to the next shot, cutting to the next shot. You have no, kind of seamless camera angle pan, which you could have easily done on such a open area. I don't know why they had to keep cutting, and it just makes you lose. I've complained about this before, and I'm coming to realize this is Game of Thrones style, is just continuous cuts, and it takes away from the battle. But that being said, good Lord, the brutality of this battle as it keeps going forward is just, I'll be honest, fascinating to watch. It really is. It is 2 characters that you have come to kind of like going at each other with everything they have. And I'll let someone talk about the kind of the end result of the battle, but just the battle itself was just enthralling to watch.
Interestingly, Clegane doesn't wear gloves when he sword fighting, or maybe he just wasn't. He was taking a shit and he'd to put on gloves after that.
Yeah, I don't know.
He probably was. When you mentioned the cinematography and the choppiness of the episode of that scene, I was thinking to myself, it did kind of jump back and forth quite a bit. But in my mind, I immediately thought, I wonder if that's to help us lose Arya in the struggle. I wonder if that was intentionally shot that way.
I feel like you could.
If it was a wide open shot, maybe we would have seen her sneak away or Podrick lose sight of her. Like if we have a shot in that episode, in that interplay there, where like Pod is like watching what's going on, but he's looking back at Arya, and Arya's just like standing there wondering what's going on. But we see his gaze divert from her back to what's going on with them. And when that scene ends, and he's like, "Where's Arya?" and he's like, "I don't know. I was watching you." That seems to come more out of nowhere because we see Pod being kind of fumbling at his job as a squire, anyways. I don't know. Just a thought I had.
I find it. I feel like you could do a single shot or even less cutty shot and still be able to do that. I think this is just this is, for lack of a better way of putting it, is the Marvel way of doing stuff, where in fights you just cut. You go 1 1 1 1, and you don't have a seamless fight because it's more difficult to do, and because your actors have to really act and get that entire fight scene down. They can't do one sword shot. All right, guys, reset. Next sword shot. All right, guys, reset. You have to do the entire thing. It's very difficult. But when you see the battles that have actually done it in some TV shows, and I can't think of one off the top of my head, I apologize. It's really, really nice to watch. You get a sense of what's happening, what the fight is, how skilled the players are. It's a lot better.
The John Wick of it all.
The John Wick of it all.
I just say John Wick is a lot like that too. Like you see the whole choreography of it all is really nice.
I guess I didn't get caught in the cinematography, but I do understand what you're saying, and I think some of that is understanding that television is now shot with ADD in mind, like that movies movies can't do that anymore, where they'll stick on two people talking or a single shot. Like you have to cut scenes, otherwise people feel like they lose interest, and that was how they did it. But my original point was, is this just sort of going to the general frustration with fight choreography in Game of Thrones and battles and like just the thing that Dave and Dave or whoever the hell these people are like we're good at is like talking about the King's Landing stuff, and the further they get from King's Landing, the worse the plot and the writing and the cinematography gets. Tyler's shaking his head.
Completely disagreeing with that, but
anyway.
I was going to go next, but I would love to hear Tyler disagree with Gary, just on the premise of it.
Just on the premise of me disagreeing with Gary. So Gary's comment.
Anyone who wants to disagree with Gary can go in front of me.
So Gary's comment there about how basically it's the story gets worse the farther you get away from King's Landing is completely false, because we just talked about an entire episode that was at battle at the very northern part of the realm there. Yes.
I'll rescind my comment.
King's Landing.
Is that battle is not what they do well. They do intrigue and
yes, they do adapting the dialogue and the character interactions pretty well there. I mean, there are some battle sequences that are pretty good as well, I think, too. But also, too, and we've had the discussion before of like King's Landing has like, we called it the A team basically because it is a lot of, now they're big named actors and stuff like that. But even then, too, they were well-known actors kind of in that one area there. So go ahead, Nick.
I was going to comment, yes, the brutality of this battle was just, I mean, they're using rocks and like Brienne bit him. So it was really, really interesting to just see that as well. Bit the Hound. But like the build up to it too, like when they first realize, oh, there's some little girl who's standing over there dancing with her sword. Like, these characters don't know each other. That just kind of struck me as like, holy crap, yeah, they haven't met yet. Because Brienne is like, hello, do you know how far we are from the ear? She's not like, holy crap, you're Arya Stark, until like 5 minutes into their conversation. Even when the Hound comes around the corner, Hound is just standing there for a second, and Pod's the one who has to recognize him and introduce, this is the Hound. Brienne has never seen him before, or doesn't recognize him. And as much as we know about these characters, how detailed they've been with the people that they have met with, they don't know each other. And so it's really interesting how quickly this goes south as well. Like, just not the battle is so brutal, but also like how quickly they are prone to jump into battle against each other, not even knowing each other that well. Like, I'm sure that Brienne has heard some information about who the Hound is, and the Hound has maybe not heard much of Brienne of Tarth, because he's not really surprised that she's so tall or big. He's, like, he has a snarky comment, I forget what context he says it in, but he has something like, you're gonna tell me that's not Targaryen steel, Brienne of Tarth? Well, like, because she introduces herself, but he doesn't say anything else. Like, he doesn't recognize that she's well talented, just that she's wearing armor and she's got a Valyrian steel sword. So clearly she's connected, at least, have all of that. And, you know, that's not Lannister steel, so maybe she knows the Lannisters well. It just seems like the Hound could have probably recognized that and been not that the Hound is ever cautious, but a bit more leery of who is this seemingly very tall, powerful figure, even if it is a woman in the context of how he derogatorily says it. It's interesting. They don't know each other, but how quickly the violence just of this world consumes everybody that we seem to watch.
I was gonna ask, and I'm gonna make enemies because that's what I do. Do you feel like the heartwarming conversation between Brienne and Arya was needed, or was it to like just set up some talkie before a big battle fight? Or the other question is the conversation with Brienne supposed to set up Arya's decision at the end of the episode?
What heartwarming? I remember.
I was going to say, I felt that conversation real quick. I didn't feel like it was heartwarming at all. I felt like it was awkward. It was very weird, and Arya was very much on the defensive.
What's her forced, or like it was like this weird thing of like, oh, we're both girls and we both use swords, like.
Oh, just like talking about the naming for their swords. I'm following
better explained. Like it just seemed. I think it seemed very clunky. The way it was written. Which is, Nick, do you disagree? Do you think it was clunky, or do you think it was?
Just to disagree with you, Gary. You're entitled to your opinion. I didn't find it was odd for me. I think that we've had some context before about the Hound saying, "Why in the world would you name your sword? That's so stupid." But to Arya, it gives, you know, a worth to her sword being named Needle, and it's something that she got from her father. And Jon, you know, has some tie into it too.
She got it from Jon.
But also got it from Jon. But also, like her father says, "I'll train you with it," and he gets her cereal for her. That's kind of what I was going with it. But then also, like, the importance of what Oathbreaker or Oathkeeper means to Brienne as well. So I think that there's a lot of context behind, what's your sword named? It's this. Oh, what's yours? Oh, that. And she's like, I like that. I don't think it was just kind of throwaway lines. I think it was them both saying each of us has a history with the weapon we choose. It's not just some sword. It's my Valyrian steel sword I got from my kind of secret crush, Jaime. What's your sword? Mine's a sword I got from my stepbrother, from my brother, who I really look up to. So I think that there's, you know, stepbrother, yeah, he's a bastard. So there's a lot of like context there about who they are, not necessarily to each other, but like that what they use means something to them is how I took it.
Just saying, you could cut to like 2 lines between each of them, and then had Pod walk in. It's like, oh, that's the Hound. And you would have, like, it didn't add any. But that's what I was asking, if maybe it had some point somewhere else. Like, I was thinking, and then at the end of the episode, I asked, is this why she chose to, instead of going to the wall that she decided to go to Bravos instead because all of her family is dead and she needs to make her own way in the world.
I'll respond really. Sorry, you go ahead, Steve. You were waiting. I'll go
No.
next.
I do think that this sets up the conversation between them does set up a moment of kind of vertigo between a conversation that seems to be going awkwardly, if very well, and how quickly, as Nick was saying, it goes downhill. And I think that sets up it makes the situation so much more complicated, so much more interesting to watch. And so I do believe it has a point to there. I did also want to say real quick that it didn't surprise me that this escalated to violence so quickly. The only thing, and I respect the hell out of these two, the only thing that the Hound and that Brienne are good at are fighting. So, of course, that's going to be their first thing they go to.
I'd also say they've been living in a entire continent that's literally been ravaged by war, where half the people were likely to attack you that you encountered. So, like, I think both of them were waiting and could see the chance for violence, and as soon as it even looked like that, both of them were like, okay, this is happening.
And they both were diametrically opposite in how they handle politics. In the the Hound trusts no one. Like, he thinks only you got to take what you need, otherwise people are gonna screw you over. Whereas Bran got in trouble maybe in the last episode for you can't just tell people you're looking for a sworn enemy of the crown. Like, you need to keep it under wraps. Like, they're just diametrically opposite on how they approach conversations with a stranger.
I think that they were both on. I think they were both on the defensive too, because the Hound we've seen was jumped by those random guys who were hoping to collect the Lannister gold, and so they tried to kill the Hound and bit his neck or whatever. And so then when he says, I've been seeing Lannister gold all my life," again, history context. Shut it, Gary. Is that House Clegane is in the Westerlands where the Lannisters are, so of course Clegane has seen Lannister gold all his life. So as soon as he recognizes the Lannister gold on her armor and on her sword hilt, he knows that she's with the Lannisters, and the last Lannister people he met, since he said, fuck the king, are trying to kill him. So I think that he's looking at it as a sense, not so much of, I'm going to do violence to you because that's all I know. I think he's already on the defensive thinking, this person's here to come kill me, not so much get Arya. So then when Brienne sees that he's getting riled, she's worried as well. I'm trying to remember who unsheathes their sword first, because they have like a standoff thing first where they half pull it out, then they pull it all the way. Is it Brienne? So Brienne starts to, and then again, from the Hound's perspective, she's threatening him, and so he half pulls his out too. So it's this sense of, I think the Hound is on the defensive, and Brienne is interpreting his defensiveness as aggression, and she's trying to be defensive as well. So the comment I had, it was a comment to what Gary's was really quick, and then I'll take a moment here for everyone else. Gary, you said you thought all of her family is dead, that's why she decides to go to Bravos. I think that she was never planning to go to Bravos. It's just that she was going to go to the Wall to see Jon, because that's where Jon was at the Wall, her knowledge. Then the person, she's like, the boatman says, I'm not going to the Wall, I'm going home. And she's just randomly, where's that? And he says, the Free City of Bravos. And that's when she remembers Jaqen Hagar's coin she has. So I don't think she was ever planning to go to Bravos. It's just that once he said Bravos, she's like, oh, I've got something that I remember is Bravosi. And she shows him the coin and says, Valar Morghulis, Valadoheris.
I thought maybe that the conversation with Brienne set up that situation maybe set up that she realized she's alone and she just gave up on the Hound and this and that, and so she just realizes that maybe she doesn't want to go to the Wall. The Wall's not the solution either. Her Winterfell's burned, her sister is lost, she's the last, and she doesn't know all her brothers either. She's just the last Stark left. So she just okay, well, I'm just gonna take things in my own hands. I might as well go to Bravos and learn how to learn from a different sword master or something like that. I don't remember, that was my question was just did that conversation affect her decision? But you think it was just just shit happened, and then she decided to go to Bravos.
I think so. I think that she truly cares, not in like a fatherly figure, but in like at least a companion that she's been traveling with as a prisoner slash captive for the last couple of months with the Hound. And like I commented earlier, people show who they truly are in their final moments. The Hound is laying there, beaten, bloodied, bruised. Like it shows a gash in his leg. He's bleeding out. He's dying. And he starts off being cocky to her, saying, "I'll skin you alive for some wine, just for some comfort right now." And it quickly devolves into, "All right, kill me and get it over with so I don't have to feel this pain." She's just like taking it all in, and then she kind of sees him for who he is. As his final moments, he's like, "What do you want me to do? Beg? Please kill me. Please, this is too painful for me. Please, please." And it's just like, it's kind of the feels where it's like, I don't think that she doesn't want to kill him. I think it's a little bit spiteful, where she's like, "No, I'd rather have you suffer and die out rather than end your life." So, or I don't know. Since she doesn't say anything, she just takes the coin purse off his corpse or his body. He's not dead yet, and walks off with it. So maybe she doesn't want to kill him because she does care about him, but she also wants him to suffer a little bit. So
My question, Nick,
to answer your question, yeah, I don't know if it's anything that they said.
Do you know what was your opinion? What is everyone's opinion on why Arya let the Hound live? I think it's
cold-blooded, because she's a cold-blooded killer, and I entirely disagree with what Nick was saying. She left him there because she doesn't care about him. He is a rotting corpse to her. And why would you do anything to help a rotting corpse or to do anything? I don't think she cares a whiff about.
I think she just took him off her list, so she did not feel the need to kill him anymore.
Because he doesn't matter anymore. You're right.
I will slightly disagree with that. He doesn't matter to her anymore. I think she holds some kind of affection for him. I don't quite know how to better explain it really there. But she also, though, too, like we're talking about, he's on her list. She's not going to give him the satisfaction of a quick death here. For all the pain and suffering that he's caused throughout, from her view, she feels that all the pain and suffering he's caused throughout his time there, he's going to suffer now for all of those consequences there. I don't think anything about it's really in the book like that, Gary. Amanda.
I honestly think it's many reasons. I think it's everything you guys said. But at the same time, I think she just saw this happen again. Yet another person that she's been with, what is this, the third time that she's been with a group and that person has been killed or taken out of the equation in some way, shape, or form. She's got such mixed feelings towards this guy. She doesn't mind if he dies, but she doesn't necessarily want to kill him herself. And she chooses to walk away. Not without the coins. Practical little bit right there. Then I do believe her choice to go to Bravos was just like spur of the moment, because she asked the captain about, "Can you take me to the wall?" And he was like, "I'm not going north." When she saw an avenue open to her, she took it. Gary?
Third devil's advocate. If she doesn't kill him, then Brienne gets the kill. Is
Devil's
that
Triangle.
what devil's triangle? What the hell are you talking about? Devil's Triangle.
You have 3 points.
You were a third devil's advocate there, so you've got 3 devils.
Oh well.
I think that's actually something else, but we're not going to look that up.
Let's quickly get off the subject.
The Devil's Triangle is where things disappear in the Bermuda Triangle.
Anyway, another kind of random fact is that if she just doesn't kill him, does that mean that he died in a weird, like, 2 people trying to defend her sort of sort of conversation? Like, then Brienne gets the kill. That was my random thought. Like, does her not killing him mean Brienne gets the kill? Nick.
My comment is they actually had talked about this in another part of this, maybe not this episode, a previous interchange, where they talk about Joffrey's dead. She's like, I just wish I could have been there to see his eyes, and watch him die. And I think the Hound says something to the effect of like, why does it matter if you kill him or somebody else kills him? He's dead. And that's a little bit of the context maybe for this episode, this scene, where you're like, oh, she gets the point for the kill. Maybe she took what the Hound says to be truth, and she doesn't really care. Like, she doesn't have to kill him. Again, if she is truly cold-blooded, I'm kind of leaning towards what Tyler said about she might have a little bit of feelings. I don't know if I'm quite like she doesn't care a whiff, like what Steven's saying. But again, Gary's point, if she truly wants that point for the kill, he's offering himself to be stabbed and finish me off, and she doesn't. She leaves him there. So I don't think she's really concerned about who gets the point for the kill in that instance.
No, I don't think she cares either. I think she's very much of a, like I said, I think she sees the corpse there. She loots the corpse and then she leaves the corpse. And she does, and I guess something to note when you were talking about the staring into Joffrey's eyes, she stares into the Hound's eyes. She sits there for a good several minutes and just no emotion, just staring into his eyes. That's all she wanted. That's all she needs. And then check him off the list, go on her way. Like,
All right. I forgot, where were we at with asking questions there?
that was my one question about the battle. I had one more.
One of three. Okay.
Yeah. So the other thing, and I'll roll it into two, is just Daenerys and her two encounters. One with a man wanting to become a slave again, because that's all he's known, that's all he's ever been, and that's what he wants to be. And so the great liberator decides, okay, maybe some slavery, sure, why not? And then just a little bit of slavery, and then I don't know if we want to just cut it off there and then go to the next portion.
I'd say you can roll them.
Yeah.
They're kind of all. I was going to group this
Sure.
into one discussion point too.
Okay, yeah, and then someone else comes in, and I can't remember if he had a name or not. But we learned that Daenerys' nice little dragons barbecued a little girl and ate her alive. Hooray, dragons!
Didn't eat her, just charred her really good. And then they say later she was 3.
Yeah.
Oof.
So, but that's how they eat, though, is they char them and then they eat them. I've got to assume that they at least nibbled. And
Just,
that's
the guy unrolls the little charcoal bones.
Yeah.
It's so macabre.
It
But
is.
unrolls the little charcoal bones, and you see at least the top. I suppose you don't see the legs, so maybe they nibbled on her legs. But the little 3-year-old's charred half, and her top and skull are still there.
Yeah,
Wow,
and that's
dark.
it goes to Daenerys has to make some decisions about what she's going to do with the dragons, and she locks the dragons away. Which, hey, finally, but I mean, I don't know. I have both reservations and positives about that moment in terms of I can't believe she let her dragons roam free for that long after they've been barbecuing people's livestock. It was not the next possible thing she thought. Oh well, humans are animals. Why wouldn't they do that? Whatever. But then she does do the positive thing of locking them away, and she has this really emotional moment when she does that. She turns back, and I mean, it's like it sounds kind of pathetic, but it's not true. It's not. It's like locking away your most favorite pet. It's your child. You've grown up with that pet the entire everything, and then basically saying, yeah, no, you're stuck in this one room for the rest of your life forever. And it is heartbreaking to do, but she does it, and that's kudos to her for doing that.
The yelping dog as you leave the room.
Yes.
So my one point to first touch on was about the guy who was too old to change, the guy going back to slavery there too. I'm surprised you didn't touch on this, Steven, since you love to just point out all of Dany's flaws there. Her first instinct is basically to just bring the armies back and
kill them. Yeah.
Kill these people or stand guard at these places where this guy is, I think, getting beat up. I can't quite remember what it's for or whatever. Which is obviously her first instinct there is like, well, let's turn to violence to solve this problem here. But she also then kind of has a coming thought of like, okay, maybe in like this character's case, he's like he says, he's too old to change basically into the new world here. So he would like to go back to some semblance of what he knows, but Danny then kind of makes the suggestion of like, okay, you're not going to go back as a slave. You're going to go back basically as an employee, essentially, to the master there, which I think is probably somewhat of a better compromise than, hey, we're back to, it's not back to slavery. It's at least back to working, for the people here. And, Barristan says the masters might take advantage of this, which obviously they might, aka real world politics going on right now. Who would have thought? But, and then too, like, to the other part too, Dany's facing consequences too for her dragons again here. And like you said, it's kind of tough for her because she's locking up what she deems as her children. Although it's only 2 of them, they can't find the big black one, Drogon.
What one?
Biggest, blackest dragon.
Yes.
Anyway.
Amanda.
I wanted to mention what I remembered reading about this part in the books. Because when the guy brings his daughter in and tells him the first instinct everybody has is to be like, no, you're lying. There's no way that's true. And they have to point out that the guy waited until all her other, like, people there to petitioners were gone. He did it discreetly. He didn't do it in front of everybody. He brought the bones, and at that point, until then, she had had some kind of arrangement where any sheep that her dragons, they were to petition her, and then she paid them for them.
Right.
And so he puts the bones in front of her, and they're like, we'll pay you for your sheep. And he starts trying to explain. They're like, are you blind? That is not sheep bones.
Interesting.
And Dany has this thought of like, oh no, oh no, oh no. And I feel like with, she's got these 3 dragons, and obviously there's no way she could have known how to raise them, but she definitely is missing some knowledge here. I don't know what the Targaryens in the past did, but
Cut people's eyes.
clearly and what is she supposed to be at this point? Like 15? Like she does not have the knowledge of how to raise these dragons, and she clearly has lost all control over Drogon. He's off flying who knows where.
The Black Cliffs or something like that.
Mm-hmm. She even asked, what's the latest? Has anyone seen them? They're like, oh, someone saw them 3 days ago, which I'm sure for a dragon, that's fine. He'll be in the same area. It's not like he could just pop somewhere else easily.
You're right.
So here's my question, and I just one point about we're saying, oh, how old is she? She's 15 right now. If she's too young to do this, then she's too young to do this, and she shouldn't be doing it. I'm not going to give her penance for being too young to be the leader of all these people, because that's something she has chosen to do. I mean,
I'm not saying that.
You're going to be... Okay.
If you want to be historically correct, Stephen, it doesn't really matter how young she is. She's in that role. She's that...
No, that's not true, because you would have a caretaker government. You would have a caretaker seneschal.
We're not a caretaker. Tommen's sitting in it. We're good.
Seneschal. It's a caretaker of a castle usually, but it's also can be like a caretaker of like basically a queen regent or a regent ruler, anything like that. Historically accurately.
All right. Anyone have anything else, or is that all for you, Stephen?
I do kind of wonder how she got so, because in the spirit of Game of Thrones just absolutely launches you off without giving you explanations to things. I do wonder to an extent how her dragons got so fucking crazy and out of control, because it doesn't, at least from what I saw, it doesn't, besides the one sheep dying, it doesn't give you any indication that she has no control over her dragons. And maybe I'm wrong there. Maybe one of you guys has seen something where it indicates that differently. But up until this point, it's basically she has full control over dragons, full control, full control, full control. Oh, they're eating sheep. Oh, they're eating people.
I think at one point she's trying to talk to them, and they like one of them turns and like kind of squawks at her like an angry duck. and then just goes about their way.
An angry duck.
I think at this point in the story, like they were very much the size of like a German Shepherd, so something that could still be disciplined and not something that's like the size of a freaking boat.
Not something that
Sure.
could discipline you.
But there's been a lot of time in between those. Assumedly in between those times, those periods of time, and I feel like this is something that the writers of the show just kind of, and obviously it's in the book as well, and maybe it's better fleshed out in the book. Amanda, you can tell me differently there, but it feels very thrown at you. And if we want to talk about Daenerys not getting the nice end of the stick because they just throw character development at her out of nowhere, I feel like they kind of throw this at the dragons.
Okay, cool. Who's up next? Amanda?
Not to take it back to the wall here, but going back to the wall, I thought there was an interesting little conversation between Jon and Tormund. Tormund's been taken prisoner at this point.
Yes.
And Jon goes to ask him, I believe, is there anything special he wants to say over the wildlings that died? And Tormund was like, well, what you're gonna go with your king or whatever like that. And Jon was like, he's not my king. Tormund mentions you spent too much time among us. I think I 100% agree. Like his time among the wildlings, it showed him different things. He's changed. He's not the same person who set out with his strict ideals of this is honor, this is bad, good guys, bad guys, this is all it goes. And would you guys say that? How much is that going to change him for good or for bad?
I would say it's probably definitely opened John's eyes to the world, and there's another word I'm looking for, but I'm struggling to find it. But there's like so much more out there, and it's not just contained to his small world that he grew up in. There's so much more stuff out there. Everything is not always black and white with everything that goes on there.
So many more worldviews.
Yeah.
Right? He set off with a idea of wildlings are bad, this is good, honor is this. And not to mention the fact that he's now seen battles between wildlings and the Night's Watch, but he's also seen a real other threat out there. Something to put all the problems he's seen into perspective. So I think when Tormund says he spent too much time among us, he's got a lot of points in there. John's seen a lot in the last little bit for a kid of 17 or 18 at this point.
Exactly.
Also, I guess for anyone else in the Night's Watch, like they only hear sort of stories, and everything they know about the wildlings is filtered through the Rangers, who obviously are hardened men who have to spend weeks or months out in the elements. And then when they're out in the elements, they have to deal with, even if they were just whiny little bitches like Craster, like it would definitely affect your opinion on wildlings if you're just like miserable. And then you have to deal with people who are trying to kill you. Like they might not all be bad apples, as somebody said earlier, but if you're out there as a ranger, like I feel like just survival instinct, you just have to assume everyone's the enemy. So.
Exactly. Yeah. Anything else, Amanda?
Nope.
Okay. Has anyone not gone yet that I've missed? Anyone?
No, I think we can call it a wrap.
Tyler, I have not yet in this glorious episode.
It's so close.
I think all of my questions are about the Tywin pooper incident.
Way to take one of the iconic moments in this entire series, franchise, whatever you want to call it, and make it the Tywin pooper incident.
Game of Thrones.
Not even a mention of Tyrion, just the Tywin pooper.
So Behind the scenes, not part of the episode because we're trying not to spoil it. I asked some other people when a couple episodes in episode 8 when Littlefinger mentions to the Lord of the Eyrie,
Robin
Oh.
Aaron.
People die all the time.
Robin Aaron. People die in
Yeah.
all sorts of places when he's trying to convince Robin Aaron to leave. People die in all sorts of places. They die at their dinner table. They die in their beds. They die squatting over their chamber pots. This was on a rewatch, realizing that it's a lot of foreshadowing. And I had to ask because I didn't connect that my boy Joffrey dies at his dinner tywin Shay dies in bed, and Tywin dies squatting over his chamber pot. Also, Tyrion held all 3 murder weapons in the true clue sense of the word. He held the cup that poisoned Joffrey, he held the necklace that strangled Shay, and he held the crossbow that killed his father. Like,
Interesting.
anyway, these are the deep sorts of things I think about when I'm watching Game of Thrones.
Spider
but
web you're
definitely-
weaving.
Yeah, definitely something that was only caught on a rewatch because a lot of the other stuff that Littlefinger says is just ugh,
Just over your head.
over. Yeah, he's just winding his own web of bullshit. Littlefinger was right. No, he wasn't. Sorry, Nick.
To antagonize Gary.
And I guess maybe it's going back. We already kind of covered the what if Tyrion won the battle. What in that conversation was Tywin trying to trick Tyrion to get out of the room, get his pants on, and just sort of stay alive? Or do you think he honestly was going to let Tyrion just escape away and probably like hover over the fact that Jaime let him out?
I'm pretty sure he was trying to defuse the situation. Maybe
But he
didn't-
probably would have put him back in chains at the end of it.
I'm pretty sure. I don't see. Tywin's just, he doesn't have that fuzzy, happy, warm feeling, does he? He doesn't give that off. He doesn't give that.
Innocent, and if he just leaves, it doesn't matter. He escaped. Tywin couldn't do anything about it. I don't know. That was just my random thought. Like, I think it's just an escape. And obviously, I would agree that it was just him trying to diffuse the situation and get to a point where even like standing up, not with his pants around his ankles, he probably could overpower Tyrion. He's a bigger guy.
Yeah, but crossbow bolts fly faster than he can run. Can I
Yeah.
say real quick that in the vein of Tywin trying to defuse a situation, it would have been cool, although out of character, would have been cool if Tyrion said, "Defuse this," and then shot him.
Or if Tywin let loose a good fart during the conversation. Just insert fart noises.
And we've completely devolved.
All right.
Or he shits himself after he dies.
He,
Just your-
he does that. Like, this is something that's covered in the books here. That's
Yep. They
in-
added that. They were like, turns out he does not, in fact, shit gold.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I
interesting.
think I remember hearing that like there's a joke that he does not in fact shit gold. Yeah. Anyway, that is all I have.
All right.
Obviously, the most exciting things I find are in Tywin's chamber pot. That didn't sound right. That didn't sound
Okay.
right.
So I have one
Hey,
big
let's,
point. to
Tyler,
dis-
just keep going.
one big point to discuss, and then I've got 3 minor things to just kind of point out here. So my big point deals with John is north of the wall trying to talk to Mance Rayder, secretly also to try and kill him here, basically. We come to find out, though, a little while later, that Stannis' new army happens to come riding through the opening and basically goes through the wildling kind of camp at 2 sides there. And obviously takes care of a lot of wildlings in the process there. My question to the group here is, though, had John maybe waited 15, 20 minutes or whatever before he marched out to Mance's camp there to, to be there at the castle when Stannis arrives. Would Jon have maybe saved more lives of the wildlings there in that instance there, or was Stannis's charge through the wildling camp needed to basically bend the wildlings to their will, pretty much? Amanda.
I didn't answer your question yet, but this is our first time that I feel like we see where an army just appears across the continent that apparently suddenly, instead of taking an entire episode to march across, now suddenly you can just appear there. Tons of people in the north,
Amanda.
where obviously the snow is very easy
Amanda,
conditions.
naval logistics is notoriously super simple and incredibly easy.
Right, and so is surviving an army in the snow, and I would like to point out that Stannis right now is having absolutely no problem with that. And Castle Black, like when you look at a map, it is in the middle of the wall. It is not near the ocean. It is like Eastwatch by the Sea is how many hundreds of miles away? Actually, don't know how many. Well, it's not exactly a day's journey.
You could Google.
There's supposed to be how many castles along the wall? I can't even remember.
7?
13?
19 or something?
I think it's
God,
13.
I'm way off.
I want to
Yeah,
say
it's something in the
13 with
teens.
like 7 operational still.
Yeah,
There's
7
three
operational sounds right.
11.
No, you're right. I'm sorry.
okay.
3 operational. There's like 7 that are still like crumbled or they are in good use. I don't know. It's something like that. But these guys show up out of nowhere. Totally doesn't answer your question, Tyler. I'm sorry. But yeah, I think that is funny. If Jon had just waited 15 minutes.
I think it
But
makes
plot.
a good story, but also would he have I think Jon being there distracted him so that he was like having his tea, so he wasn't prepared. Also, I think Jon was an important part of the negotiation, and if he had to ask Stannis for permission, he would have never made it into the conversation. Also,
Fair.
bonus question: do you see Lightbringer in this episode, or is that in
I didn't notice
Stannis'
it.
flaming ass sword? I thought he rides in with a flaming ass sword.
He might in the books, but I don't
In the
think Lightbringer really becomes much of a factor in the show. So there are 19 castles to guard the 100 leagues of the wall. Although they are never manned more than 17 at one time. And I'm sorry,
17 at one time. Oh my
only
gosh.
3 castles remain in use. Castle Black, Shadow Tower, and Eastwatch by the Sea.
Shadow Tower. I always forget the name of that one.
So I'm not sure how many more lives he could have saved if he had been there. I think it'd be very hard to stop the charge one way or another. And not sure if anyone would really listen to him. In a military movement, I mean, what are you going to have one guy going, "No, not here," and then you run that guy down. So I'm not sure it would have saved too many more people. I do bow to Amanda in bringing up the magical movement of troops, supplies, and horses across from an island all the way to north of the wall. It is near impossible to do that, and I also kind of wonder the logistics of where they got food the entire time, things like that. Because once you get inland, you're not being supplied by ships anymore. What do you have? A series of runners running back and forth with fish?
And they've got people up that wall. So why didn't, if he waited 15 minutes, how come he couldn't see the little army 15 minutes out?
Magic, duh.
I feel like if they were looking for food, there were lots of empty villages with lots of food along the way.
Enough to feed an entire army?
Fiction.
All right, everyone. We're
Feel
going to
that.
split it up. Everyone gets 5 pieces of bread today. Have fun with that.
I think I'm sorry, Gary. I think I've interrupted you like 3 times.
I was just going to say, if it was a surprise and it saved lives, Mance's army was not expecting that. They were very much going for the war of attrition, that they were going to attack the wall again that night. And all of a sudden, Stannis with this huge fucking army comes out and like, where the fuck did all these guys come from? And they have horses. Like, there's no horses at Castle Black.
Right. I also think Stannis was on the other side of the wall. As we know, it's not exactly like you just pick a gate and walk through the wall. So he landed on the
Very
other side of
good
the wall
point.
and came up there. This could have gone so badly if he needed anything out. Like, he was so stuck on either going back the way he came or leaving through Castle Black. It's a good thing for him that though that tunnel wasn't sealed, or he had been like, hey, won the battle, now we're stranded here, thanks. I'll just go back the way I came, don't worry, it only takes me a really quick time.
And then I'm actually also surprised by the. I mean, at this point, they're fairly war hardened. I'm going to call them like free people, and they're not free people. What are they called again?
Things.
Yes, those guys. How do you not have pickets? How do you not have like any sort of warning system to go, hey, there's a giant mass of cavalry coming our way? Like, how do you not hear the footbeats? It's a massive. Going back to Lord of the Rings again, you had that giant charge down the slope on oh my god, I'm gonna forget what it's
Helm's
called,
Deep.
but
Deep, you stupid fuck!
not Helm's Deep, you stupid fuck. The at the
Was our PG rating?
yeah, the overall PG rating. The last siege, basically, the one where
The Pelennor Fields?
thank you, the Battle of Pelennor Fields. Thank you. When you have all those horses running down, it's you'd hear that coming. So it's just, I don't know. Like Amanda says, plot, but
At Helm's Deep, you could hear the Uruk-hai in the distance.
you know what?
would show that.
Actually, I think you can say this marks the point where Game of Thrones starts going with major battles, making them logistically impossible. They just go for kind of the effects from now on. We get into we're doing fan service sort of charges, and there's no way this actually would have happened. Because I'm thinking about the battles that start coming from this point on, and they all tend to be like this. There's some magic savior or something like, and it's not actual magic, it's just the magic of plot. And before, you had the battles with Robb, and those were fairly well intuited. You had like, oh, well, we took for every one of their men, we took 4 or something, and we needed those men more in a realistic battle sense. From now on, it's just, hooray, fight!
So yeah, I mean, this also as a note to anyone listening here, this episode, this season is the last season where they have books to completely follow. I think there's still a little bit that bleeds into season 5, but season 4 is definitely the last full season where books were kind of being used as the writing material for the show. All right, everyone good with that point? Amanda, did you have one more comment?
Yeah, just Mance even says, you're not dressed warmly enough, which I laughed myself silly at because I was like, see, I told you, how'd you get here? Going through the snow. Doesn't even have a hat on.
Not even a hat.
Everyone knows that when you're in super cold polarish regions, you don't need hats.
And you got to ride that horse really fast too, because that just keeps
Damn
you
right.
warm.
Right. I always hate that
Friction.
when I watch movies and I watch somebody pick up a snowball with like their bare hands, and I'm like, have you done that like continuously? You do not put your hands now are wet and they're out in the cold. You are gonna die of hypothermia.
Also,
All right.
snow is a very specific, like, snowballs are a very specific type of snow. It's not every snow.
Mm-hmm.
White Christmas snow can't make snowballs.
Listen and yield to the wisdom of the South Dakotans, other listeners.
All right, so there's just 3 minor points that I wanted to kind of cover here too at the end. Number 1 was from the introduction, the intro part. Moat Cailin is shown still kind of throughout this season. You only see that place once, which I just find kind of weird that they don't update it like they kind of do with some of the other seasons there.
Reed takes it back, yeah.
Number 2, Mance Rayder utters "We do not kneel," which born, which shortly after this, an entire subreddit is born called the Free Folks. If anyone's been there or knows about that subreddit.
No, I don't. Can you tell me something about the subreddit? Then
It was real big towards the end there. Like they didn't do anything with, they like would shout spoilers on there and nobody would care, or like a lot of the last few seasons were leaked, and then they would post a lot of the leaks on there and stuff like that. It's basically just like they don't conform to rules and stuff like that. They're living like the free folks. There is no ruler over them.
oh, it spawned an entire generation of toxic viewers.
And then the final point is just basically the musical score. Again, as I've touched on over and over throughout our discussion here. The musical score at the end of the episode is just fantastic there. So,
Yeah.
Gary?
HBO. Oh,
You mentioned earlier that like this is the last season that's part of the books. Do you also feel like this is sort of the point in this where the fan base started to kind of divide too? Like,
I think the fans are still kind of in it here at this point in time.
books. When there were no books to follow, people who wanted logistic end to the book and people who just wanted like HBO show, and then people who were just like fuck it all, like let's spoil everything. Steven?
that's an interesting kind of idea to muse on, and I know we have a friend who has not watched past season 5 specifically because the books have not come out yet, and he does not want to. At this point, he's heard basically everything, but he doesn't want to actually see it. He wants to read it first. And I think there is a small amount of people that believe that, but I am not sure that, honestly, anyone who was a real big show groupie was necessarily always ever a big book groupie. I think those were two different camps, and sometimes they intermingled. Tyler and Amanda are perfect examples of where those groups intermingled. But I do see that was oil and water, and that was oil and water from the beginning. That wasn't after the books started or left.
For the longest time, though, and this is a whole other topic to even get into here at the end of our podcast, but for the longest time, it was always basically the book readers were holding it over the show readers of like, we know what's coming, we know what's happening and stuff like that. This is after the season. Like I said, there's still a little bit in season 5 that is touched on in the books, but this is kind of then getting into the part of the unknown of like, okay, what is going to happen next in the story here, really.
Anyway, that was just like I this season just being sort of like where also as somebody who came into the show late, I think this is probably around the time I came into the show. Like once it became super popular, things are out on DVDs. I think definitely this is a series that, just talking my own history, like that was only popular once you get your hands on it, because at that point in time, DVDs were still expensive. I think the first season of this DVD of Game of Thrones is probably still $50. And if you didn't know what it was, that's a lot of cash to put down. HBO was still systemized to only be for cable subscribers. So, Steven?
I don't think I agree with Tyler. I don't think it was only systemized to be for cable subscribers at this time. But that is actually a good point. Did HBO have a absolutely viral TV show like this before? I know they had Band of Brothers, and Band of Brothers was wildly successful, but I don't think anyone ever got HBO to watch Band of Brothers. You watched History Channel or you bought it. I don't know if there was anything that really drew people to HBO like this before. And I'm asking.
I mean, I don't know if nothing ever on HBO got as big as Game of Thrones here. But there was stuff like The Sopranos, The Wire.
You're right.
Deadwood was another one there too that I know a lot of people got real big into. But nothing obviously ever got as big as what Game of Thrones ended up being.
Black Sails ever any good?
That's Showtime.
That's Showtime. Okay, never mind.
Anyway, we can wrap up this episode.
Yeah, we're going to wrap this episode up because we could spend hours talking about a lot of the minor details around the outside of the show here. So,
two really, really good episodes, though.
2 really good episodes there. So for next time, we're moving into season 5, episode 1, The Wars to Come, and episode 2, The House of Black and White. Thus concludes our discussion here on season 4, episodes 9 and 10. Thank you everyone for listening. Have a good one.
Valor
Hi,
Morghulis.
everyone.
Lock your chamber fire.
Harris.
Hi.